Hi guys, Steve-O here. Hey, I'm going to help you try and diagnose your Subaru sunroof problem. This is an 03 Forester XS model, and customer's complaint was that the sunroof no longer opened and closed. Through some troubleshooting, I was able to find out that it was in the it was actually in the motor and the control unit on the sunroof. But I can show you a few tips on how to access that. In the back, if you open the door, there's a trim bezel that goes up underneath here. You pop that out of the way. You remove a few screws out of the side pockets. That lets the headliner pop down without damaging it. Up in here, there will be a bracket, and our motor will bolt with 3 screws. One here, and then one back here. There's also a plug-in pigtail, and that's where I troubleshooted the switch to make sure it wasn't the switch and to make sure the motor has power. You know, red is positive, black is negative, and then on this particular model, there's a green with the red stripe, white, and then yellow. Black with the yellow stripe. Green is the common on the switch controller up front, and then you would jump those to either the white, green to white, or green to black with yellow, to bypass that switch up front, and that will tell you if it's the motor or not. So I did that, and I still wasn't getting any function out of the motor. So I took the motor section out, and then it'll end up looking like this. And it may look kind of confusing because up in there's like cables that route through, but you don't have to worry because it's gear driven, so you don't have to worry about it. It'll clock itself when it goes back together. And also to help you out, there's a keyway with the Torx in here. You can turn that manually as well to get that spline line back up when you're done with the repair. But what I ended up doing is I ended up taking the cover off of the circuit board, or the controller is what they call it, and then I went further than that, and I took that off as well. And then that gave me access to the direct connections right here in this little socket, and that's just positive and negative going to the motor itself. And then what I found out is after jumping that straight across the 12 volts, I found out it still wasn't turning the motor. So I actually took this motor can off, and I'm going to pause for a minute and take that off and show you what's inside. Okay, so I'm back, and there's 3 screws that you can see, 2 on the top and then 1 on the bottom, that hold the motor can onto the actual housing. And then this pulls apart. And you don't have to be scared of this because it actually goes back fairly easy. And then what I found is inside here, I've already cleaned it up, but inside here there's a couple of brushes. That would be 1 on the left and 1 on the right that stick out right here. And those need to be free. They're spring loaded in the back side of it. Those need to be free. What I found out is that the commutator, which I'll show you in a minute, was so carboned up that it could no longer pass voltage to the motor. So I'm going to put this down, and I'll show you the commutator on this. This is the can, and the little shiny brass part right there, that's called the commutator. It's got a bunch of divided segments, and that all goes back to the wire windings. So you can basically, what I did is I took mine all the way out like this, and I chucked the back side of it up. I chucked it into a Makita, and I spun it, and then with really light, like you can use contact cleaner, and then use like a really light duty like a Scotch-Brite pad, and you can polish that commutator back up. So to go back together, actually put this back into the housing, and then you'll have to take a small pick, like this one here. You have to take a small pick and pull the brushes out of the way, so you can get it put back into the can, and then properly lined up. So give me a second and I'll do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, I got the inside of the motor put back in there. I pulled the brushes out of the way, and it slid in there really easy. You just want to spin it and make sure there's no bindings, and then just take a close look. I probably wouldn't use anything like steel wool or anything like that, because you don't want those metal fibers down in there. So anyways, and then you just kind of hold the armature in place, and then you slide the can over. It is going to be kind of magnetic because it tries to pull towards the magnets, but let me put it back together and I'll come back. Okay, I'm back, and I'm up at the front of the car, and I've latched onto the battery. I do have a 1 amp inline fuse, just in case there's some kind of a short. You can rig that up. You just get an inline fuse holder and then you know, put your jumpers on that. But anyways, I'll hook up the negative side, and we got power going forward. It seems to be working fine. I'll reverse the polarity, make sure it goes backwards, and we're going backwards. So far we have a success. And I wanted to point out one more tricky little thing. When you take the 3 screws out of the can on the engine here, there's little slots that hold these square nuts in there. Just keep an eye on those, because those like to fall out, and if you're in a garage and it's dimly lit, you're gonna have a hard time finding them because they're pretty small. But anyways, I'm gonna put this, reinstall it back into the car, and then I'll give you an update. Okay, so we're back in the car. I got the motor for the sunroof all put back in, and now we're gonna go for the trial. And the roof is opening. Tracks like it should. The clips grab the sun cover, and it should transition and then stop, and then you hit it again and it'll go all the way closed. You can still slide this open, and then we'll get out and we'll just double check that the seal up on the top. You just want to make sure this comes up nice and flush in here, that way you don't get any water leaks and your customer doesn't end up with a car full of water and back a unhappy customer. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. See you guys next time.